Our next presentation comes from Joel Pitts, the advisor for the Iron Lions solar car team from Greenville High School. Joel has always been very good in sharing information, and he does a great presentation on how you can get parts and the type of parts that you can get in the contacts. And that resource is on our webpage. But I just love how the team just, whenever they finish scrutineering or whenever there's a team in need, the team just goes out and helps other teams out. And it just really captures that spirit of cooperation. So thank you, Joel, for coming and sharing with us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. All right. So, Robert, great presentation. Man, I was going back in time listening to you talk. Our first car looked a lot like y'all's. It was, we called it the Model T, and it had no aerodynamics, but it weighed 1,200 pounds and it didn't break down. So that was a good thing. So one of the biggest things that when we started doing solar car, it was really hard to figure out where do you get your parts, where do you even start to look, and then if you're a public school, everything's on a preferred vendor list, and some of the parts you need won't be on a preferred vendor list. So hopefully through this project, a lot of everybody will get a good idea of a jumping off point to get your parts. And this is not the end all be all material list. These are stuff that we've done as a research as a team that we wanted to share with everybody. So let me go ahead and click through here. So like one of the first things that we looked at, and it was the very first thing that we as a team purchased, were our solar cells. And we've purchased a bunch of different solar cells, had them made. And on our recent car, we actually made our solar cell cell by cell. And I'm going to tell you what, that is a challenge. Some good places to go look is Wholesale Solar, and I should have updated this because I believe that Wholesale Solar changed their name. So I would have to double check that. If you need custom panels, SBM Solar is out of North Carolina. There's been a number of teams that have purchased cells from there. I know that New York has. When Liberty Christian was racing, they did. We've purchased cells from there, and you can get specific on your size and then how you want. You tell them what size array you want, and then they try to fit in the most in the zones that you're wanting to go with. Green Tech is a good place to go and look. And then SunPower cells. If you're looking to get either buy the cells individually and you want to go ahead and make your own, if you're in the advanced division or in the cruiser class, Maxion, which is SunPower broke off and started I guess a child company, Maxion, that deals just with their Maxion cells. And there's a new, if you go to sunpower.com, there's a new section where they've reestablished the educational purchase for universities and secondary. So you can go on there and get a special rate. You email them and tell them how many you're wanting to order and what you're wanting to get and which cells you want to get. Because I'm going to tell you what, as you go up in efficiency, it costs exponentially more. And a good example is if you look on here where it says Gen 3, there's actually some Gen 4 cells, and the Gen 3 cells are actually 24.7%. But when we bought ours, that was $5,000. If we were to go to the top efficient 25.3%, that was it doubled. And we thought, well, we don't need that extra percentage. But there's so much more solar panels available now that when you go out and research, you can find them from just about anywhere. The one thing that SunPower has started putting out are thin solar panels. So they're very lightweight. There's no glass involved. You can kind of see the picture in the middle where it has a flexible panel. Wiley, we talk to them quite often. Tony is their sponsor. They bought those thin, flexible SunPower cells, and they did really well. And one of the things that we noticed is that SunPower, they under promise, and when you put them on there, they overproduce. We were seeing way higher outputs than what the data sheets showed. And so I was asking Tony about them, and they were using the ones that are pre-made, thin, very flexible, and they're very lightweight. He said that they were seeing, numbers that were a little bit better than what the data sheet said. So all in all, for our experience, SunPower has been pretty good. Panasonic makes really good solar panels. We've used those. Panasonic bought Sanyo, and they have a proprietary technology that allows them to capture a little bit more. And the Panasonic panels produce, they maintain producing power even when they get hot. So you'll see that if you've never bought solar panels before, whenever you purchase them, they're all rated, that efficiency on the data sheet is rated at 77 degrees or 25 degrees Celsius. As the temperature goes up, you get losses, and so the output goes down. On the Panasonic, we never saw that. They produced at or a little above, even when they were reading like 125 to 130 degrees in the sun at Texas Motor Speedway. So we found those to be really good cells. Again, these are jumping off points for you. The cool thing about the SunPower cells is a lot of times if you look, you'll see pictures of cells and they've got 3 10 strips going across the front. And on the older silicon cells, that was your main collection point for electrons from the silicon. On the SunPower, you can't see it in here, but there's got to be over a couple of hundred tiny connection points for it to collect and put out the electrons. And you've got the positive and negative side, and there's multiple points. What's up? The other thing that's awesome about them is if they crack, they're still going to put out a power. On the old solar cells, if they cracked, they were done. And we've tested them. We had some that we had to rip off the car. They had holes in them. They were shredded, and they were still putting out power. And we thought, man, that's pretty amazing. So that's something to look at. Either if you're going to go with the panel size, I would say if you are a first-year team, buying a pre-made solar panel is probably the way to go, because there's so much stuff that you've got to factor in and figure out on your car, that if we've been doing solar car for a while, and to build our own array, man, that was some kind of undertaking. I can't tell you, there's a lot of money, a lot of stress involved if you get it wrong. So, all right. So the second thing that we looked at was once you have your panels, well, you have to be able to capture that energy and then translate it to charge the specified battery, the voltage at specified voltage from the panel. So a long time ago, I heard a presentation from Keith Reese with Houston Solar, and he says, your panels are dumb and your batteries are dumb. And then this right here is the brain. This is what makes everything work. So Midnight is a fantastic MPPT charge controller. It's got a lot of great benefits for somebody just getting into it, or anybody that's at 72 volts or below. We were able to use just one of these on a car with 6 panels. It all balanced out, and there's some good features. The faceplate, you can extend it out with a cable, with like an Ethernet cable. You plug it in, and you can mount that in the car for the driver to see what's coming in and what's going out and what's available to be used. And if you plug in a router to that, you can get your data wirelessly back on a laptop. So if you have a strategy team, especially on a road race, this works great, because on a road race, you can have either your strategy team in the lead vehicle or in the support vehicle right behind the car, and you guys can monitor what's going on with the car, And so that way, if your driver's telling you, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but they're hot riding around, you can say, really? And you can see what's going on. And all that's available on their website. A lot of teams have used the Outback. Those were pretty common early on. One of the other, if you're going to be in advanced, you're going to be running voltages above 72. Now you start getting limited on which MPPTs you're going to be able to use. You're going to need ones that can put out, like, can charge a 96 volt battery pack or even 140 volt battery pack. And so some of the MPPTs that are available are the Ariel. This is the RaceMax 600. We've used that. It's been used for a long time. You can still order those. If you order these, you're going to have to order multiple if you have a large array, because you're going to want to break those up into zones. Another one that's fairly new on the market, and this is pretty cool. It's an Elmar, and this actually company was started by a student that raced in I think the Netherlands, and they developed their own MPPT, and then he started his own company. And Proleon down at the bottom under the Elmar, they sell those, and so you buy. They build them in Australia, and you can buy them there. They end up being about $1,200 US. But what's really cool is car, and so you can actually hook this up through that system with a CAN bus display that will tell you exactly what's coming off of these meters, and it just gives you a little bit more telemetry. And then over on the far right, there's the Mitsuba or Nomuraco. They produce cells. You can get the Mitsuba motor we'll talk about here in a minute. These are all stuff that they produce for the World Challenge. And these have some unique features. We kind of looked at them, but we haven't gone there. But I wanted to put it out there so you guys could research all of these and get a taste for what's available. If you're going to run a 48-volt system, man, there is a ton of charge controllers out there that work really good. And you can get these through Wholesale Solar, which I know that they've changed their name. I should have updated that. Midnight Solar has fantastic customer support. I can't say enough. They actually came out to the race one year and looked at everybody that were using them. I know that the Shine Runners, us, and then a number of other teams were using them, and they were kind of shocked. What are y'all using these for? And so they gave us a wealth of information, and that they know that you guys are using these for solar cars. Ariel, Gensun, that's another company, and these range in prices. I can give like the Elmar and the Ariel, they're both about $1,200 a piece. The Midnights, they're going to be, I haven't looked lately because I know there's been inflation, and really with chip shortages, I don't know how much is. I should have looked to see how much was out there, but you can probably look. These run around $800 depending on where you find them. But the other thing is, if you happen to damage, and it happens, I've blown these. I blew one of these up our first year. So that was $1,200 out the window. But on the Midnights, they actually sell replacement boards, and you can actually send them into them. They'll refurbish them for a very small amount of what the original price is, and then they'll send them back to you. So that's pretty cool to have that available. Let's see here. Yeah. So if you're looking at having some of the upper end stuff, Nomuraco, you got to go to Facebook, and then I would like them and just follow them because they make a lot of stuff. And it's pretty neat to see what they're developing and testing, and the motors that they're making for solar cars is fantastic. I can't get enough just watching what they're producing and making available out there. Batteries. Again, this is if you're gonna be in, this is totally up to your option. If you're in the classic, advanced classic, or EV, those are going to be pretty much lead acid batteries. If you're in cruiser or advanced, then you have the option to go to something more exotic like lithium. And so I found that battery guys, if you're going to buy just regular lead acid batteries, they've been pretty good. When you get a price that includes the shipping, I haven't found any place that's cheaper. Sun extender batteries, those are fantastic for running solar cars. They can take some abuse. I was telling Brian, they're over here visiting, and one year we had our EV car, so it's got 2 battery packs. I said, hey, y'all need to go charge those batteries up and top them off. We've been driving around. This is before the race, and we go out there, and we thought we had our Midnight that was set at 72 volts set off to the side and out of the way. It was kind of locked there. We didn't reflash the firmware or anything. Well, I didn't pay attention, and nobody else paid attention. They hooked it up, and some kid walked in and said, hey, are those batteries supposed to be hissing? And I'm like, no. Well, we were charging a 48-volt pack at 72 volts. And we went out there, the batteries were bloated, and we're like, well, that's it. And to our surprise, those batteries only they maybe lost like 1 amp hour of capacity. So they produced really well. And throughout the race. So we're like, man, that's pretty substantial for them to have been overcharged accidentally. So we immediately took it out, ran those batteries down to get that back down and out of that voltage range and try to cool them off. But the sun extenders, they can take some abuse. Battery Space, great website for researching batteries and what's available. If you're doing lithium batteries, they got a list. So when you go click on it, you can look at all the different lithium batteries, and it'll show you their different features, what their when you're doing a lithium battery, it'll have a maximum amperage that that battery can handle by itself to put out. So you want to pay attention to that, and it'll have listed there. So you can do research there, and then you can also look at that and then go see if it's available anywhere else and shop around. I know that Battery Space can also do turnkey lithium battery setups depending on your voltage. And that would include like the BMS, the battery management system, which is you have to have a battery management system with lithium. If you go to lithium batteries, from our own experience, if it's not executed properly and you're not really paying attention to what's going on, you can have dramatic results. I mean, bad results happen. You know, they've gotten better making the batteries safer. Last year, for any of you guys that were at the race, we had an issue with our battery pack, and I'll just kind of share like what happened. So we had decided to spot weld all of our modules together. We had 27 of them. Well, the spot welding looked great from the outside, but that you can't always inspect between the battery and the nickel strip. So in one of our modules, one of the 27 modules, actually 2 of them, 4 batteries in one module and 3 in the other had to become delaminated. And so what happened was, instead of it being like 52 amp hours, those modules were only 40 something amp hours. So when we took the car down and dipped into the battery past 40 amp hours, then we destroyed the batteries that were working in those modules, and they started to off gas. And we actually had evidence that they had melted the foam insulation in the battery pack. And so we had made the decision on Wednesday night that we're not racing the car. It's not worth paramount. I have to make myself say this. It's not worth the student safety, and you sure don't want to burn your car to the ground. So it's real important to pay attention if you're using lithium. Safety, 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 safety. We decided to have an onboard fire extinguishing system so that once the driver got out, they can just pull it and it floods the entire car with a alcohol-free foam that's rated for lithium batteries. So I just wanted to expand on that and kind of share that with everybody. Some other batteries that we've used in the past are PowerSonic. Those are really good batteries. DCbattery.com has them. Wholesale Solar, there they changed their name. They carry any company that deals with solar is going to have batteries as well. So these are some good jumping off points. I've always bought our lead acid batteries from Battery Guys. In the past, they've had the best price and it was free shipping. So go out there and research and find the ones that are going to work for you. And okay, motors, man, this is one of the areas where you really need to do your homework, because you know there's all these different motors out there, and then you want to look and see, well, what's different about each one. And so one of the things you want to look at is each motor will turn different RPMs at different voltages. Well, that can be important as far as like what you're wanting to do. So for example, if you get a I'll do this motor right here. So this motor is an ME0909, and then that's Mott Energy, and then they make a number of different motors, and they make one that's a 0907 or 0709. I might be transferring that. The 0709 at 48 volts, it'll pull 2400 RPMs. The 0909 at 48 volts will turn 4800 RPMs. And so you also want to look at the data sheets that are available, and then you want to look at what motor controller is going to be the best for your match. So if you have a brush versus brushless, brush motor versus brushless, that's just going to be your preference on what you want to run. We've never had an issue running a brush motor. And then also if you're going to run a hub motor. So a hub motor is where the wheel's attached to the motor, and that's the one that's available for you to run in the advanced or the cruiser class. All the rest you're going to want to run a chain drive, whether that be a brushless or a brushed motor. Cloud Electric, they have a lot of good stuff available as far as buying motors and your fuses for the motors and motor controllers. Electric Motorsports, EV drives, Thunderstruck. These are one Electric Motorsports, EV drives, and Thunderstrucks. Those are probably the ones that I go to the most. because they have a wide variety of things available. And, you know, I would say just go through there and start looking at all their products, down to their meters, their motor controllers, their different types of throttles, all the different types of motors, and then also pay attention to how much the motors weigh. That's pretty important too. Let's see here. Mitsuba, this is the premier hub motor for solar car racing in the world. They're super efficient. They're really pricey too. So this would be one where you'd have to really look and see, you know, do you have the budget to tackle that, or can you work out a deal? If you contact Nomura, a lot of times they'll ask you, and I had this problem when we were talking, they're like, well, what's your budget? And I'm like, well, I need to know how much it costs. What I didn't realize is they were asking what our budget is, because sometimes other teams will trade in a motor to upgrade to another motor, and they can take the trade-in motor, refurbish it, and sell it to you at a discounted price. So those are things to pay attention to. And on some of these websites like Electric Motorsports, eDrives, and Thunderstruck, you can buy your motors as a package deal where you get the motor controller, the throttle of your choice, and the motor all together. Probably one of the things that I'll expand on, like what Robert was talking about, is having redundancy. We got a motto when we're packing up to go, like somebody say, hey, do we need to pack this? And we're like, pack it so we don't need it, because Murphy's Law is for real at Solar Car. Anytime that we forgot to pack something, or we only had one of it, then that part gave us problems. So make sure if you can afford it, to have redundancy. It's always good to have a spare motor that you can replace, or a spare motor controller, because the weirdest things will happen that you don't expect. So let's see here. All right. This is for switches and disconnects, brake lights, turn signals, fuses, and wiring. These are a lot of the different places that we found to find the different disconnects. Now, one of the things that you'll need to pay attention to is, I believe now it's in the rules, that you have to have a remote disconnect that can be activated with the low voltage from the driver compartment. That way you don't have the full voltage and amps in the driver compartment with the driver. So you can find these at just about any of the links that I have here. eDrives, Mauser carries them, Electric Motorsports. One of the other things, and I think maybe on the next page, wiring. When you got to just get primary wire to do your low voltage system, man, eBay and Amazon are fantastic. I'm sure y'all have looked. We bought a multi-pack of primary wire that had like 5 different colors, and then it had the additional same colors but with a white stripe. So you may want to take that into consideration, because having all the different colors when you're laying out your wiring diagram and you've got it all wired that way, if you have an issue at scrutineering, like ground to frame, we've had it before. When you have it laid out to where you've got all these different colored wires, and your wiring diagram matches that, it sure makes for easy troubleshooting to be able to fix that, because there's nothing worse than having to chase something down at scrutineering and you're just under the gun feeling the pressure, and you're not resolving it. So we found, by going to the multicolored wiring on the primary for the low voltage side, man, that makes a world of difference as far as troubleshooting and then being able to get through scrutineering quick if you had an issue. The other thing that everybody's going to need to get for this race is ECCO lights. It's in the rules. You need to get the specific lights for the race. There is a example of one right here. These are high, super bright flashers, and you can actually see these flashing from miles away. We've been on a road race where in the distance you can barely make out the car, but you can see the lights flashing. This is paramount for safety, so that people know, like, hey, what is that going on? And then you got a sign that says caution, solar car ahead. I mean, everybody's going to need to get those. I'm trying to think. There's another company over in Denton, Earl. I can't think. It's like Earl Campbell or something. But if you go look up ECCOs, make sure you get the ones in the rules that the race is specified. Don't buy the knockoff brand. Go ahead and spend the money and buy these. Make these a priority, because if you show up to scrutineering and you've got the wrong lights, then you're running around trying to find lights. And you don't want to be in that situation. Okay, so but Grainger has them. You can find them on Amazon and at other trailer companies. Again, you're going to see some of the same websites you can go to for different, like the fuses, Electric Motorsports. That's one we've talked about. Mauser, DigiKey, Grainger, Waytech, McMaster Car. If you haven't been to McMaster Car, man, that's a fun website to go to. Kimball Midwest. If you, I don't want to say anything bad about Kimball Midwest. Everything seems to be a little more expensive, but sometimes you can only find certain things in certain places. For your wiring, Cloud Electric, Electric Motorsports, eDrives. Oh, I will say this, for your, what we have experienced, and we've seen other teams having issues, make sure that for your main wiring system, this is what powers your motor. Get a good quality wire, either wire that's specifically sold by the company that sells the motor, or use a welding cable that's rated to the amps that you're going to run to that motor. You're better off overkilling the wire to make sure it can handle the amps than trying to be right on the edge of handling the amps. Because some of your motors, you're going to run it at around 25 amps, but it can peak out at 300 or run constantly at 100. So make sure that your wires can handle what you're going to push to the motor. With that much power running there, you want to make sure that what you've done can handle what you're going to require, because on a road race, when you're on hills, you're going to have to drive the car sometimes like a car. When you're in a town, we tell our students, this is, all right, we're in this intersection, you need to drive this like you drive a car. Sometimes it's not about power conservation, it's about getting through the intersection safely, making your maneuvers like you would in a regular car, instead of creeping around at 3 or 5 miles an hour through an intersection. So make sure you got wiring that can handle that, because when you do that, your power will spike, and you want to make sure that that everything runs after you do something like that and it can handle it. Sometimes it's good to sacrifice weight for safety and reliability, for sure. Okay. All right. So one of the things you're really going to want to do is be able to monitor, like, what's your car doing? How fast are you going? On a road race, it's important. You have to keep a speed of 15 miles an hour or faster. If you can't do that, then you have to pull over and charge at a safe place, or you need to load your car on the trailer and trailer to a safe place to charge. So we found that for speedometers and ease of installation, a GPS speedometer is super accurate. You plug it in, put your GPS antenna on your car somewhere where it doesn't interfere with anything, and it will show you how fast you're going. This for wiring your 12-volt system, we found that these fuse boxes and distribution panels are fantastic. You have an input, it's Rig Runner. This is the 407U. They have all different kinds. If you go and look at Rig Runner or PowerWorks website, you have your main power coming in, and then you can distribute it out. And what's fantastic, since you can't use the frame for your ground, then each system on your car will have its own fuse, and it will have its own ground and positive wire going to it. This is where we found that this has been fantastic for us, in the sense that if you had a ground and frame issue on your low voltage side, you can just start unplugging those systems, and you can quickly narrow it down to, oh, it's this system that's showing the ground and frame. And then you might say, hey, the other 6 aren't showing anything. And then you can focus your attention to that. Okay. And this makes for a very clean wiring. We're big on making sure that our wiring is clean, so it's easy to troubleshoot, easy to look at, and it's not in the way of getting in and out of the car. You can get speedometers on eBay, Speed Hut. They're getting cheaper and cheaper, and there's all different sizes. Low voltage alarm, very important for your auxiliary battery. 12-volt Technologies LLC. It shows you what your voltage is at. It gives you a visual red blinking light and an audible tone whenever you drop below a certain voltage. It's telling your battery's running down. That tells you, like, hey, we need to change our battery out soon, or if you have a problem. And it can also function as your main on-off switch for your entire auxiliary system. Okay. And you can find all this at 12volttechnology.com. You can find your fuse distribution boxes at Rig Runner and at PowerWorks. And then batterystuff.com has a lot of great stuff. Volt and amp meters. There are a number of places you can get digital ones or analog, and you can get them on eBay if you buy them in advance. You can get them fairly cheap to monitor that in the car. And some of you probably have found stuff that I haven't found yet. So sprockets, custom sprockets. I went and looked this morning because that's one of the areas where we were always playing with our gear ratio, trying to get our car into the best power band. Rocketsprockets.net. You can order a custom sprocket if you're running chain drive. Rebel Gears will do the same thing. And then custom motorcyclesprockets.com, that's associated with Rebel Gears. And you can put in the parameters. You can tell it, hey, what motorcycle wheel are you using? So it'll go ahead and establish the bolt pattern. And you can tell them what size change and then how many teeth you want. And that can make a difference when you have, the gear ratio you want. You'll find that out if you put the test miles on your car. You can say, well, what if we change it 1 tooth or 2 tooth? And we did that, and we found something that worked good for us. And it's always whatever you call we call it our money setup. Like that's just for us, it was 5.2 to 1. That was the one where our car performed the best, but it's different for every car depending on your weight and aerodynamics and what kind of motor you're using. So that's something you have to play with. Seat belts and seats, Summit Racing, motivationaltubing.com. They provide a lot of stuff for junior dragster. So there's a lot of great stuff there. Your brakes, your MCP brakes, you can get the ones that are 7 ounces. That's what a lot of the World Challenge use. And we really like them because you can set the gap on your brake. If you're using just regular ATV or motorcycle brakes, there's always going to be a little bit of drag on your brake pad or your on the disc. So with the MCP brakes, you can get the Martin Custom products. You can set that gap to where it's right there. So when you let off the brake, they're not touching. 80% of the power you're using on your car is to overcome rolling resistance. So whether that's friction buildup between brakes and pads or the road and the type of tires you're using. So motivational tubing is a great place to go and look for stuff. They have all kinds of stuff there. So Summit Racing, obviously jegs.com. So brakes, you can go right to mcpbrake.com, motivational tubing, the chassishop.com, and then you can use AliExpress. I'll kind of talk about that in depth here in a minute. If you order it now, due to everybody knows there's all this weight and there's container ships sitting out there in the Pacific Ocean. So I don't know if you would get it in time. Steering, you can get motivational tubing has that, the chassis shop, Go Power Sports. You can buy steering wheels, your rack and pinion, your tie rods. So all of that stuff. And I know that we've bought the rack and pinion, and then we usually end up making our custom tie rods because you got to set it up to whatever the width of your frame is to where you've got your wheels mounted. So these are some good websites. Suspension. A lot of teams will use a 4-wheeler or ATV suspension setup. So you get the A-arms, and then you weld them onto your frame, or you weld the tabs on their frame to mount. We've always bought a good used set on eBay. It keeps the cost down. You can get stuff from the chassis shop. You can get shocks from Ride Fox. Fox shocks are really good. They're kind of expensive. If you go research, you can find some that aren't quote unquote name brand that'll function really well at a cheaper price. For metal construction, we always try to buy local if we can. Online Metals is a great place to go research what metal you're using, because it's going to give you the strength of the metal at whatever thickness you're getting, and it kind of gives you a ballpark on what the price is. Now, Online Metals is always way more expensive than your local metal supply place. QMF Steel, that's one that's out by us. I listen to them because they're a specialty metal company that carries everything from titanium to chromoly to A513, aluminum of all different grades. Wix Aircraft is another one that carries all the different metals. So I would use online metals to research and then start reaching out to your metal supply companies near you to see what metals you want. Because the online metals will give you a little bit of knowledge so that when you contact your local metal supplier, you can kind of talk the lingo of what you're wanting to get. Okay. And you can also research on online metals and kind of learn about yield strength and shear strength and different things. You can Google that and look it up. That's what we do here. So that's good. Nuts and bolts, McMaster car, when you need a special nut, bolt, fitting, fastener, whatever, man, fantastic. Kimball Midwest will have, special bolts. The cheapest bolts that we can find is Bolt Depot. Our local supplier here, he said, I bet I can beat it. He couldn't beat it. So Bolt Depot is fantastic. When it comes to bolts, this is what I would suggest. Buy all your bolts as grade 8 bolts. I don't care what size you're using, because here's inevitably, from experience, happens with us. We'll do prototyping on the car. We use a grade 5 or something lower. And that'll be, I'll say, hey, y'all need to switch out the bolts on the car, and it never gets done. We get to scrutineering, and they're like, oh, they told us we need to switch the bolts out. I'm like, really? So if you prototype with grade 8, you're not going to have an issue. If you get rid of all your bolts and just keep grade 8 in the shop, you're going to have a bolt that's strong. You're not going to have to worry about having to replace bolts. And it's going to make things smoother when you're going through scrutineering, because you've already fulfilled that rule in that area. Sorry. All right. Wheels, Summit Racing, you can get wheels. So like if you use the ATV arm suspension and it comes with the hubs and the brakes and everything, you can actually go to the third link under wheels, shop.adapterkings.com, and you can buy wheel adapters to go from ATV to automotive, or automotive to ATV. You can go from 4-lug to 5-lug, or 4-lug to 6-lug. They have just about any adapter that you want to make. And so if you find some like weld wheels and Summit Racing, then you can make it to where those fit an ATV wheel pattern setup. If you want to go with something different, treatland.tv. So I found this place. They deal in moped parts, and so a lot of wheels that cars are running on, solar cars, are light, strong, and they've got a different number of different moped rims, new or used. They have a lot of new stock, and they also have it to where you can put hubs on, and then the wheel goes on in a 5-lug pattern, just like a regular car, which is convenient if you have to switch wheels out. You could have extra wheels with tires on it, and then instead of having to like pull over and change, if you got a flat, you just switch the whole wheel out and then keep going and getting those miles on your car. So treatland.tv, they're out of like the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've talked to them on the phone. They're really nice. I think they started their website to support their surfing habit. But if you email, you haven't heard anything, just give it a little time. They will get back to you, and they're really good about customer service and fulfilling what you ordered. So that's an area for you to look at and see if there's something there that would fit what your need is. Oops, hold on a second. I hit that button. All right. So if you are planning on incorporating some composite material, to keep the weight down, or if you're going to build a composite body, I'll pray for you. But if you're going to build a composite body, here's some of the stuff that we found, that we ordered for our car. Express Composites, Rock West Composites, Fiberglass Composite, Envisions, and then Dragon Plate. Now, Dragon Plate's really cool. DragonPlate.com, you can buy pre-made carbon fiber products. So say you're not wanting to do that, but you're wanting to use some structural things in areas that are lighter than steel but as strong. You can buy carbon fiber tubing. You can buy Dragon Plate panels. They're 4x8 sheets of carbon fiber sandwiched with either aluminum, structural foam, or Nomex honeycomb in there, and they all range in different prices. For example, if you were going to do something with Dragon Plate, a 4x8 sheet, it's going to cost about $1,100 per sheet. Now, the beauty of that is the 1/2-inch sheet weighs like 6 pounds total, so you can spread. I mean, and it's really strong. Again, it's all about what's your goals, what are you trying to do. The other thing that a lot of teams have been doing is creating a aerodynamic shape at a low cost by creating a wire structure and then covering that wire structure with what's called a heat shrink. Okay, you can buy the heat shrink in rolls of 20 feet wide by 200 feet long. It costs like $300, and then you buy the tape. And once you get it on there, you can use a heat gun, like you can buy at your local home store. There's a Wagner, that's what we use. Gives you a little more control, and you can kind of work it. And then once you do that, you have this awesome body that didn't cost much, and you have an aerodynamic shape. So and I would say this, if you're able to achieve this, let's say you're a car and you're only going to be able to do 20 miles an hour. And if somebody said that, well, you really don't need aerodynamics, don't come into play until you hit 35. If you're on a road race, if you're going into a headwind of 15 miles an hour and you're doing 20, I mean, you're doing 35 or more. So those are things to keep into account. And also, if you can achieve a body, it looks cool. I mean, it makes your car look cool. So you can get shrink wrap from AmeriCover and from Big Shrink. Now, the Shrink Fast, that's a propane gun, and it does shrink fast. We've seen people use like the torch for burning weeds off in your driveway to shrink that. If you want more control and like really work it and it's safe, the heat guns are the way to go. You can get a couple of students going on 2 different circuits, and y'all can work that down. If it doesn't work out, you can take it off and do it again. One roll of that heat shrink, I think we can wrap like 3 or 4 cars. There's enough there. So we buy it and it lasts for years. So and then you can also use it to enclose the bottom of your car to cut down on wind drag, wind entering your car. So those are all things that you can do to help ensure a lower drag resistance on your car. And then if you are planning on doing a carbon fiber body, you can go to Foam Mart, and you can buy the foam to create a plug, so you actually become the sculptor to sculpt your car out the way that you want it. And that's one place to get that. One of the other things I want to talk about is custom fabrication. So I know a lot of people are using Solid Edge. That's the one that you can get through the Solar Car Challenge. Siemens partnered with Solar Car Challenge, and they provide Solar Edge free to the Solar Car teams. Fantastic software. If you happen to be a school that, like us, that has, we have a program where students get certified in SolidWorks, and so that might be something you use. That's great too. One of the things we use in coordination with our other industry software is Onshape. Onshape is a free online-based CAD software. It's all online, and you can work. You don't have to have a special computer. You can work on that from a Chromebook even. And then what we'll do is we'll have students design stuff, and then when they come to school, they upload it into. They'll export it into either a Solid Edge file or SolidWorks file or whatever you're using, and then you can continue to work on it. The company that we found that changed the way that we fabricated is called Xometry.com. You can take your CAD drawing, and this is an example of our wheel spindle for our car that we built. You can upload that. You can, once it's uploaded, you can tell them like what process you want it made out of, what kind of material you want it made out of. You can specify if you want the ends threaded, and then within less than 2 minutes, you'll get an instant quote back. And then it'll tell you like if you want to order it from China, or if you want to order it stateside, or you want to do express order, you got 3 different options. We do just the regular USA option, and we usually get parts back in 10 days. That's a pretty fast turnaround. So if you're needing that special part and you may be lacking the ability to fabricate it, but you got kids that designed it in CAD, this is fantastic. And we feel like it's pretty reasonable on the price as far as what you're getting, because some stuff you just can't find it out there. I can't say enough about it. We've ordered a number of things from Xometry, and you can go in there and just see, like, maybe you want to design a custom wheel. Well, what is it going to cost? You can just go and look. And if it's out of your price range, then maybe you do something else. But like the spindles, we were doing custom geometry for the front end. They were able to make it all, and it is superb fabrication. I mean, it's top notch, top of the line. I can't say enough about it. One-stop shopping. I'm sure most of us have bought stuff from Amazon, either with the school's money or personally. Amazon has become a vendor for most school districts. We finally became, Amazon became a vendor for us. So that makes buying stuff and saving money in your program cheaper. eBay, you know, that's you got to find somebody, or you get maybe out of pocket, or if you have a booster club, you can buy stuff off of eBay. If you're a private school, it might be a lot easier. And then Walmart.com. Walmart's a vendor for most schools. These are great places that you all know about it. I just want to touch on it. Ordering from China, extended shipping time. I think it's even more extended now. We've ordered from China. We ordered all of our suspension and front end back in 2015 for our EV car. And when we got it in, we were missing one of the upper A-arms. And so we kept going back and forth. They never contacted us. So we just had our students duplicate the A-arm. And I'm like, well, we'll just make them from now on. But we finally had to duplicate it, and it took forever to get there, to get to us. We ordered, it took 3 months to get to us. Because you don't know if like the dock workers are going to be on strike, or if you're going to have what's going on right now with the pandemic. Is unprecedented, and it caused tremendous backup for California offloading all these shipments from overseas. There can be a communication barrier. If you've got somebody on your team that speaks Chinese, man, you might have that might work out really well for you. And there's not really a warranty when you order that. So you're going to order it knowing you're going to get what you get. Some of the stuff's really good. Some of it you're like, well, we got what we paid for. So I would just say, if you're going to order stuff from AliExpress or Alibaba, just pay attention and know that there's no guarantees on that stuff. Order at your discretion. There's some good stuff on there. Just be careful. The other thing that you can do, because we know that when you're building a car, if you're a first-year team or even a multi-year team, everything always hinges on what your budget is. So one of the things that we've had to develop as a team is this motto: make them tell you no. You're not being rude or anything. It's just like, when you're going to order something, say, hey, this is what we're doing. You can share your website with them. Would you be willing to partially sponsor or maybe extend free shipping? And we've had good luck with that. Wholesale Solar offered free shipping on all of our panels. That saved us like $400. And then we've had some partial sponsorship, rugged radios, just walkie-talkies. If they say no, you didn't lose anything by asking. Just be polite about it and approach it the right way. And you can get those discounts and then stretch your budget going forward. Approved vendors. So this is for teams that may not have a booster club or 501c3 yet. And you're a public school, and you have to go through the approved vendor list. It either has to be state approved on one of the big lists, or it has to be approved locally by your district. Build relationships with locally owned businesses that are vendors with your school. And what I'm saying this was one of the best things we ever did. We have a local automotive supplier here in our Greenville, and he owns his CarQuest dealership. And so we approached him and said, hey, would you be interested in being a sponsor? And we're not asking for money from you. What we'd like to know is, would you be willing to add anything in the world to your inventory and sell it to us? And he jumped at that. And so the first thing that we partnered and did was, we needed to buy those aerial race Max, and we needed to get them from Australia. And he said, absolutely. And so the way that budgeting works, with schools, is you order the product, and then once you get the product, then they pay the person. So Randy, the guy that we work with, he's been a sponsor with us since the beginning, and man, he has floated some big purchases from places that aren't vendors. So when he adds it to his inventory, we're buying it from him, and he's a vendor. So if you can build relationships like that with locally owned businesses that are vendors, it'll open the world up to you as far as being able to buy stuff and stretch your dollar. I want to say that Randy saved us, man, at least $75,000 in the last 11 years that we've been doing solar car. Because one of the other local businesses, they were corporate, and they said they could do it, but it was going to be a 25% markup on everything we ordered. And I'm like, well, we can't do that. So build relationships. And I say build relationships goes across not just vendors, people in your community, your administration. Invite your administration to stuff. That, man, that alone. And I'm really hoping that everybody, we're past this pandemic so that when we're at scrutineering, people will be allowed to come in to see what's going on, because that really broke the doors open for us when our superintendent came and saw what we were doing our first year. And the next thing I know, all these teams had these big trailers. And he says, y'all need a trailer. And so he ordered us a trailer, and then we did this and that. So build those relationships. That is one of the key things that you can do in your solar car project, is build those relationships with everybody and anybody. And one other thing is be cautious. If you're wearing a team shirt and you're out there, and I know this is kind of different than suppliers, but it kind of comes back to it. We all know that you have those long days, and maybe you've had a rough day at school and you're leaving and somebody hacks you off. Man, don't do it. If you're wearing your team shirt, you may be ruining things for yourself beyond what you can ever believe would happen in your community. Because somebody will say, that guy's a jerk, don't give him anything. So be cautious of that, be kind to everybody, and it'll go a long way with your team. All right. Is there any questions?
We already have a question for you.
Okay.
Someone asked online, how much of a discount do you usually get for those partial sponsorships?
That's really just, it depends. It depends on, here's what it depends on. You kind of can fill out who you're talking to with the company, and then you kind of start talking to them instead of just like a business transaction. You start saying, well, I'm a teacher, I'm doing this solar car. And you kind of just, while you're talking to them, email them your link to your website. And then when you hear them get excited on there, that's when you're trying to start talking about it. So there's no set value on what discount you're going to get, but or if you're going to get one, it's just whatever that company feels like they're able to afford to do.
Joel, with regard to the Maxion and SunPower stuff, you said that there's a certain, they restored some educational program. Can you talk more about that?
Well, on their website, when you go on there, most everything is geared towards corporate purchase and like solar cell companies that'll install them on your house. But there's a link on their website that'll take you to university educational, because they sell their cells right to universities. So if you ever go and peruse the World Challenge and the different teams, you'll see that a lot of them are running SunPower cells on their cars. And it allows an opportunity for you to purchase the cells at a lower quantity at a competitive price that you can afford to purchase. Now they do have a minimum that you can buy. I don't remember what that is, but I know that I've purchased them. Elias at Prosper, he's purchased cells. For a short period, it was hard to get contact with those, but it was because they were switching from just totally SunPower to now having a Maxion company. And those individual cells are pretty awesome.